Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Moe, and we're here today to talk about the single-player gameplay footage that was revealed for Battlefield 1 over the weekend. We've got about a 12-minute clip ripped straight from one of the game's single-player missions that seems to be following the perspective of the Harlem Hellfighters. They are indeed in BF1's single-player campaign. A lot of us were asking the question of when and where they were going to show up, how they were going to be a part of the BF1 single-player after the game's single-player reveal trailer, which included those 5 war stories, none of which detailing the existence, or the presence, I should say, of the Harlem Hellfighters. So it appears we have our answer. They will indeed be a part of the single-player campaign. Now, I'm not entirely sure how this mission connects to any of those 5 war stories. It should be noted that they appear to be fighting alongside of British forces against German forces. So this is not just the Harlem Hellfighters here, although we are playing purely from their perspective. In fact, eventually we will see our character get inside of a Mark V tank, which indeed seems to be commanded by a British commander, who even goes as far as to shout, "For king and country." Really exciting. Obviously, the Harlem Hellfighters, a very important unit in the United States military, a very important African-American unit in the United States military. They would spend 191 days in combat, more than any other unit in the United States military. They would be the most highly decorated unit in the United States military, and they would be the first allied unit to take the Rhine. Definitely a group of badass dudes that deserve some recognition inside of BF1. And this is one of the things that has me most excited about BF1 single player. Again, the continued push for diversity in the perspectives that we get to experience as a player. I'm very much looking forward to spending time with the Harlem Hellfighters, with the Anzac Runners, with the Arditi, as well as with traditional British and American forces. It's gonna be pretty freaking awesome, and I hope that we see an even bigger push in the diversity of perspectives once we get our hands on the full single player experience. Let's talk about the gameplay at hand here. I don't really have too much that I can say about this particular battle. I simply don't have the detailed World War I knowledge to make even a slightly educated guess as to what battle this could be, so I'll leave that to other people. I'm going to talk about the gameplay because there's quite a lot going on here. This is a very interesting mission that we're seeing demonstrated, and it has an odd combination of player-controlled first-person combat experiences with some cinematic transitions, as well as some more interesting death mechanics. Let's talk about that death mechanic. In a traditional first-person shooter, in previous Battlefield experiences, the player takes on the role of one specific soldier. That soldier, when they die, ends the mission, and then the mission has to restart, and the player keeps making pushes until they complete their objective. There's always some objective at hand. The player is always progressing forwards toward victory. That doesn't seem to be the case here in BF1, and I think for all of the right reasons. Rather than dying and starting at some sort of a checkpoint and starting the mission over, when you die, your soldier dies. Your soldier is KIA. They are killed in the line of duty. At that point, you see their name pop up on the screen. You get to see the year that they were born and the year that they die. You get a bit of narration from the narrator for this particular mission. It seems to be one of the soldiers from the Harlem Hellfighters. And you move on to another soldier fighting potentially in the same area of the battle, or in some cases, as we saw throughout this gameplay footage, a completely different portion of the battle, maybe even pushed further back on the line, defending a church, or going as far as being as the soldier climbing inside of the gunner seat of a Mark V tank, as we're seeing right now. One thing was very clear to me throughout the length of this gameplay footage. This mission in particular, I'm not entirely sure how other missions will go. I'm not sure how they're going to handle the other war story components. You know, what are things going to be like when we're fighting alongside Lawrence of Arabia? Are they going to use a similar death and respawn mechanic? Or are we going to see a more traditional checkpoint system? I don't know. But the one thing we can say about this mission is that it is very obviously focused on the experience above all else. This isn't a single player mission where it's about the player defeating the game on the hardest difficulty. Hey, look, I beat it on veteran or vanguard or heroic difficulty. Look at how many kills I got. Look at all those enemies that I mowed down. This is not your typical first-person shooter campaign. This is not an experience like ones that we have seen in the past. This is an experience that seems heavily focused on the experience itself, portraying the human element, really forcing emotions on the individual as they make their way through this battle. There isn't any clear objective or goal. You're just being told by your commander, hold the line, get this turret, get that. You are basically just surviving for as long as you possibly can, as the story seems to progress in one direction regardless of your performance. That's probably the biggest question that I have. Is the player going to continuously get overwhelmed until they finally die so the story can progress in one specific direction? So the battle can progress in one specific direction? Or as a player, do you have the potential to control the outcome of the battle? This is something that isn't entirely made clear. It's obvious that throughout this gameplay footage, the person playing is dying intentionally to showcase the death mechanic and also to show the mission progression mechanic. If that's the instance, then DICE is completely abandoning the traditional way of rewarding players in a first-person shooter experience, and I like that. That's a big risk. That's the risk of saying, let's step away from a single-player campaign that's about the player feeling like Rambo, that's about them feeling like the Terminator. Let's break away from it being just about the player testing their Twitch shooting skills, and let's throw them into an experience. Let's make them feel, let's make them see and witness the horrors of war as we can best portray them in video game format. That's a bold, bold direction to go with, and one that I am wholeheartedly on board with. I love the idea of playing a first-person shooter campaign that is all about the experience and not about how many heads I can pop out on the battlefield. It completely changes the player, the individual's perspective and perception of what they're experiencing. It puts emotion at the forefront of the experience over skill-based player reward. How awesome does that sound? I am so on board for that. And DICE, if that's really what you're going for here, I applaud you again and again and again. I really hope that you're able to execute it and deliver it in the way that you see fit. And I hope at the end of the day, this is something that I can play and I can walk away from feeling like I've experienced something truly unique and special when it comes to first-person shooter experiences. Again, a lot of questions that need to be answered. How much impact does the player have? How is this sort of mechanic going to be implemented elsewhere, if at all elsewhere, throughout the course of the game's single-player campaign? You know, how are the war stories implemented into all of this? How are specific characters implemented into these battles and different missions? We simply don't know, but I can tell you right now from the footage that I've seen here, I am going to be very happy to drop my $65 and find out for myself when Battlefield releases this October. Now, I would absolutely love to hear what you guys have to say about this gameplay footage. If there are any details that you have picked out, would like to discuss or share, feel free to throw them down in the comment section below. Any questions, feel free to do the same. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.